Jacob, a struggling farmer, knew hiring the mysterious veteran was risky. The whole town warned him, whispered secrets, fearful glances, but something in the man's weary eyes told Jacob he deserved a chance. The next morning, just as the sun kissed the golden fields, a deafening roar shook the ground. Black SUVs, tinted windows, armed men in suits storming his land like a military operation. Jacob's heart pounded. What had he done? Who was this veteran, and what was coming next? Hit like and comment where you're watching from. Your support brings more amazing stories. Now let's begin. Jacob wiped the sweat from his brow as he leaned against the wooden fence watching the stranger work. The man moved with quiet precision, his strong hands lifting bales of hay as if they weighed nothing. He had introduced himself only as Daniel, a veteran looking for work. The town had warned Jacob against hiring him. Whispers followed Daniel. Wherever he went, no one knew where he had come from, and no one wanted to, but Jacob did not care. He had seen the look in Daniel's eyes, the same haunted expression his father had carried after returning from war. A man who had given everything deserved a second chance. Daniel barely spoke. He worked hard, never asking for anything extra. He arrived early, stayed late, and handled every task without hesitation, but something about him unsettled the others. The farm hands avoided him, the townspeople grew quiet when he walked by, and the local sheriff had stopped by twice, casually asking about the new worker. Jacob found it odd, but he was not one to judge a man by rumors. That morning, as the sun began to rise over the fields, Jacob stepped onto his porch, stretching his aching back. The air was crisp, the kind that signaled the end of summer. He sipped his coffee, feeling a sense of peace. Then came the sound, a deep rumbling, distant but growing louder. The ground trembled beneath his boots. He turned, expecting to see a storm rolling in. Instead, black SUV sped down the dirt road, kicking up clouds of dust. His pulse quickened. Something was wrong. The vehicle skidded to a stop just outside the barn. Doors flew open and men in black suits poured out, moving with practiced efficiency. They were armed. Jacob's stomach clenched. These were not local authorities. He had seen enough military documentaries to recognize government operatives. When he saw them, Daniel stepped out of the barn, his face unreadable. He did not flinch at the sight of the men. He did not look surprised. Jacob took a step toward him, but before he could speak, one of the men barked in order. Daniel Reynolds' hands. Where we can see them. Jacob's breath caught. Reynolds. He had never asked Daniel for his last name. He glanced at the veteran, but Daniel remained calm. The men advanced, forming a tight perimeter. One of them turned to Jacob. Step back. This does not concern you. Jacob's fists clenched. This was his farm, his land, and the man they were after had done nothing but work hard and keep to himself. He took a step forward, placing himself between Daniel and the approaching men. If this does not concern me, Jacob said, voice firm, then why are you storming my land? The leader, a tall man with cold eyes, barely spared him a glance. You have no idea who you led into your home. Jacob turned to Daniel. The veteran met his gaze, something unreadable flickering in his expression. Then he exhaled slowly, raising his hands. The men moved in, but just before they reached him, Daniel spoke. You have made a mistake. Jacob saw it, then the brief flicker of hesitation in the men's eyes. And in that moment, he knew Daniel was not just a veteran. He was something more, something dangerous, and Jacob had just walked straight into the middle of it. Jacob's heart pounded as he watched the armed men close in around Daniel. The veteran did not resist. His hands remained raised, his face calm, but Jacob could feel the tension radiating from him. The men moved with precision, their weapons ready, their eyes locked on Daniel, as if expecting him to fight back, but he did not. He just stood there, silent, waiting. Jacob's instincts screamed that something was wrong. These men were not local law enforcement. They did not introduce themselves, did not present any identification. They acted like they owned the place, like they had the authority to take Daniel without explanation. That did not sit right with Jacob. What is this about? Jacob demanded, stepping forward. He did not care that they were armed. This was his land, and he would not be pushed around. The leader, a tall man with an unreadable expression, barely spared him a glance. Step aside. Jacob did not move, not until someone tells me what is going on. The man exhaled sharply, clearly annoyed. He nodded toward Daniel. He is coming with us. That is all you need to know. Jacob turned to Daniel, searching for answers, but the veteran's face remained unreadable. The silence stretched between them. Then finally Daniel spoke. I told you, he said, his voice quiet but firm. You are making a mistake. The leader's jaw tightened. Enough. Take him. The men lunged, but in a flash Daniel moved. It happened so fast that Jacob barely registered it. One moment the armed men were reaching for him, and the next they were on the ground groaning in pain. Daniel had not thrown a single punch. His movements were precise, calculated. He had taken them down without breaking a sweat. Jacob took an involuntary step back. He had known Daniel was different, but this was something else entirely. The remaining men hesitated, their hands hovering over their weapons. The leader's face darkened. Stand down, he ordered his men. Then to Daniel he said, do you have any idea what You're doing. Daniel gave him a long steady look. I know exactly what I am doing. Jacob's mind raced. He had hired Daniel because he was a hard worker, because he had seen something in his eyes that told him he deserved a second chance, but now he was beginning to wonder who he had really led onto his farm. The leader adjusted his stance. You cannot run from this, Reynolds. Daniel's gaze sharpened. I am not running. Jacob's patience snapped. Enough, he said, stepping between them again. Someone needs to start talking now. The leader turned to him, his expression hard. This man is not who you think he is. Jacob clenched his jaw. Then tell me who he is. The leader hesitated. Then finally he said, he used to work for us. Jacob's stomach dropped. Work for you? Daniel's expression remained unreadable. The leader continued. Classified operations, off-the-record missions, things that never made it on to any official report. He paused, eyes locking onto Daniel's until he disappeared. Jacob looked at Daniel, searching for any sign that the leader was lying, but the veteran's face gave nothing away. Daniel exhaled slowly. I told you, he said again, you are making a mistake. Jacob's pulse thundered in his ears. He had no idea what he had just gotten himself into. Jacob could barely process what he had just heard. Classified operations, off-the-record missions. The way Daniel stood calm and unshaken made it clear that this was not some misunderstanding. These men had come for him because they knew exactly who he was, but Jacob did not, and that realization sent a chill down his spine. The leader took a step forward. His men, still recovering from Daniel's swift takedown, looked hesitant, as if unsure whether to attack again. The tension in the air was thick, pressing down on everyone. You should not have come here, Daniel said, his voice eerily steady. The leader narrowed his eyes. You know, we could have done this differently. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he did not respond. Jacob's patience was wearing thin. Someone needs to explain what is going on, he said, his voice firm. I do not care who you think he is. He works for me now. This is my land. You do not get to storm in here and start giving orders. The leader turned his gaze to Jacob, his expression unreadable. You do not understand what you are dealing with. Then explain it. Jacob shot back. A muscle twitched in the leader's jaw. He glanced at Daniel, then back at Jacob. Do you know why he was hiding here? Jacob frowned. He was not hiding, he was working. The leader let out a slow breath. That is what he wanted you to think. Jacob turned to Daniel, searching his face. Is that true? Daniel's silence spoke volumes. The leader continued. Reynolds was one of the best. He was sent on missions that no one was supposed to know about, and then one day he disappeared. No trace, no explanation. He walked away from everything. You do not just walk away from something like that. Jacob clenched his fists. Maybe he had a reason. The leader shook his head. You think he is just some veteran looking for work? He has more training than an entire squad of special forces. The question you should be asking is, why did he come here? Jacob's pulse pounded. He turned to Daniel again. Tell me the truth. Daniel exhaled. I was not hiding, he said finally. I was trying to leave it all behind. The leader scoffed. You really think you can just leave? Daniel's eyes darkened. I did not think you would come looking. Jacob felt like the ground had been pulled from under him. He had trusted Daniel, given him a job, and now he was realizing he had been living with a man who had secrets deeper than he could have imagined. The leader took another step forward. Reynolds, you know how this works. You come with us, or we make you. Daniel's muscles tensed, but he remained still. I am not going anywhere. Jacob knew that if things escalated, his farm would become a battleground. He could not let that happen. Wait, he said quickly, stepping between them again. There has to be another way. The leader did not look convinced. He belongs to us. Jacob set his jaw. Not anymore. Daniel looked at Jacob. For a long moment there was something in his eyes, something